You know, if you skip a stone across a perfectly calm pond, you get these beautiful, mathematically predictable concentric ripples.
Right.
I mean, it's pure, simple cause and effect. You can point right at the water and say, that specific stone caused those specific waves.
It is linear physics at its finest.
Yeah.
Action and reaction.
Yeah.
And, the human brain just loves that kind of direct causality.
Oh, absolutely.
We evolved to understand that. Like, if I push a rock, it rolls down the hill. If I drop a piece of fruit, well, it falls to the ground.
But imagine taking that exact same stone and throwing it into the roaring center of a Category 5 hurricane.
Okay, that is a very different scenario.
Right. And then a few days later, a heavily armed SWAT team kicks down your front door, drags you away, and charges you with a major crime.
Wow.
And they look you dead in the eye and claim your specific stone is the reason the hurricane just leveled a city down the coast.
Yeah, human intuition just hits an absolute brick wall in that scenario.
It really does.
Because we're taking a psychological framework built for incredibly simple, localized environments like a small village, or a forest, and blindly applying it to a chaotic, hyper-connected, nonlinear system.
And that massive, profound disconnect brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are unpacking a truly astonishing stack of sources surrounding the real-life legal case of Dr. Chen Yuan.
And he is a complex systems physicist.
Exactly. We have his official legal indictment, the court verdicts, a deeply philosophical blood letter defense that he actually wrote while sitting in a prison cell.
It is an incredible document.
It really is. Plus, we have some incredibly advanced AI-generated analyses that apply evolutionary psychology and network science to his entire ordeal. So we are exploring what happens when a brilliant scientist uses quantum mechanics, network topology, and computer science theorems to defend himself in a court of law against a vague, sweeping criminal charge of provoking trouble on Twitter.
It is quite the collision of worlds.
Now, before we jump in, you should know these sources contain highly politically charged content, mentioning both Chinese and U.S. politics, including references to the CCP and Donald Trump. We want to make it absolutely clear to you that we are not taking any sides, nor are we endorsing any of the viewpoints contained in these sources. Our goal is simply to impartially report on the fascinating ideas and arguments exactly as they appear in the original material.
So, to really grasp the sheer scale of the overreaction here, we first have to look at the cold, hard facts of what Dr. Chen actually did.
Right, let's start with the facts.
Over a span of several years, he used a VPN to access Twitter from inside China. And he had fewer than 100 followers.
Wow, less than 100.
Yeah, and the sources characterize this audience largely as inactive, bot, or zombie accounts.
Okay, so nobody was really even listening.
Exactly. And over that entire multi-year period, he retweeted fewer than 100 posts.
And the content of these retweets is just as crucial to understand. We're talking about like a cartoon of a girl holding an umbrella.
Which was a symbol for protest, right?
Yeah. And a picture of a candle commemorating the June 4th incident. An academic analysis of the political spectrum. A speech by Donald Trump criticizing communism. And some historical notes regarding edits made to Mao Zedong's early writings.
And that was it.
That was it. For this, literally for clicking a button a few dozen times over several years, police burst into his home, confiscated all of his family's electronics, and escalated it into a severe criminal case.
So why the SWAT team for 100 zombie followers?
Seriously, why?
Well, to understand this massive overreaction, we have to stop looking at the law and actually start looking at human biology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the AI analysis of the case introduces a framework from evolutionary psychology called the mismatch hypothesis.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
Basically, the human brain possesses a hypervigilant threat detection module.
Oh.
But that module, it didn't evolve to process the internet. It evolved for small, tight-knit hunter-gatherer tribes living in an ancestral environment.
Okay, let me unpack this. It kind of feels like an autoimmune disorder.
Oh, that is a great way to put it.
Like the state's defense mechanism is so completely hypersensitive to any foreign material that it attacks a single, isolated, harmless cell.
Yes, exactly.
And in the process of attacking that one cell, the immune response causes vastly more disruption to the body than the cell ever could have on its own.
That autoimmune analogy captures the underlying mechanism beautifully. In that ancient environment, distinguishing between your tribe, the in-group, and an outsider, the out-group, was quite literally a daily matter of life and death.
Right. A foreign idea or a foreign presence was an actual physical existential threat.
Exactly. And today, the judicial system and the state apparatus, they function psychologically as a highly unified, incredibly powerful in-group.
So when Dr. Chen bypassed the local internet to interact with foreign political concepts, he just tripped that ancient biological alarm system.
He did. He wasn't processed as a citizen with a mildly different opinion. His actions were instinctively categorized by the system as an invading force attacking the tribe.
But the state's response wasn't just about neutralizing him, right? Like throwing him in prison for a handful of retweets. It seems designed to be a massive spectacle.
Yes, and evolutionary psychologists actually call this costly signaling, which is done in the service of maintaining a dominance hierarchy.
Costly signaling.
Okay, humans are biologically wired to constantly monitor for free riders. People who enjoy the protection and benefits of the tribe, but secretly break its most sacred unspoken rules.
And Chen was perceived as breaking the ultimate hidden rule, absolute ideological loyalty to the group's core narrative.
Right, so by bringing the hammer down so publicly and severely on such a mathematically insignificant infraction, the system was sending a devastatingly costly signal to every other intellectual in the society.
The message basically being challenging the narrative, even into an empty digital void, carries a price so high it will absolutely destroy your life.
Yeah, the cruelty and the disproportionality, they aren't an accident. They are the core features that make the biological signal effective.
Okay, so let's look at how they actually tried to translate this biological panic into a legal justification. Because the authorities couldn't just write, "He tripped our evolutionary threat sensors" on the arrest warrant.
No, they definitely could not.
The official criminal charge was picking quarrels and provoking trouble. It's a notoriously broad charge, but legally the prosecution was still required to prove a concrete physical outcome. Like they had to prove that Chen caused serious disorder in public order.
And the court transcripts on this specific point are genuinely surreal.
Really? How so?
Well, the prosecution's case was entirely devoid of mechanical proof. The prosecutor openly admitted on the record that he did not fact-check the retweets.
Wait, he didn't even check if they were true?
No, he didn't investigate whether the historical notes on Mao or the political spectrum analysis were objectively true or false. He stated to the court that he simply felt they were rumors designed to cause societal chaos.
I am still trying to wrap my head around the judge's ruling here, because they couldn't prove he actually caused any chaos.
Right. They had no proof.
So the judge argued that because Dr. Chen is a brilliant, complex systems physicist with a PhD, he must have known his actions would spread rumors and destabilize society.
It is wild. They weaponized his own extensive education to fill the massive gap where their actual evidence should have been.
So how did Chen respond to that?
Well, rather than debating the politics of his retweets, Dr. Chen completely flipped the entire paradigm. He brought the CIP theorem from computer science into a criminal courtroom.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, he used it to fundamentally dismantle their legal premise.
Now, I know a little bit about back-end network infrastructure, but how on earth does a computer science theorem function as a legal defense against a police state?
Okay, so the CIP theorem mathematically proves that in any distributed computing system, like a massive database or a global social network, you can only guarantee 2 out of 3 properties at the exact same time.
And those are consistency, availability, and partition tolerance, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly.
Okay, so meaning consistency is when every user sees the exact same data at the exact same moment.
Right.
Availability means the system is always up and responding to requests.
Yes.
And partition tolerance means the system continues to function even if some of the network nodes fail or get cut off from each other.
You nailed it. And global social networks like Twitter are fundamentally engineered to prioritize availability and partition tolerance.
Because millions of people are logging in globally, servers are lagging, connections are dropping.
Exactly. Because of that architectural reality, the theorem dictates they must sacrifice absolute consistency. The network is inherently mathematically designed to be fractured, delayed, and slightly chaotic at any given second.
Wait, let me make sure I'm really getting this.
Yep.
Chen is telling the judge that the internet is mathematically mandated by the laws of computer science to be inconsistent.
Yes.
Therefore, you cannot prosecute me for causing chaos in a system that literally requires chaos just to function.
That is exactly his argument. Okay, but let me push back on that logic for a second. Isn't that like saying, well, the room was already messy by the laws of physics, so you can't arrest me for dropping a gum wrapper on the floor?
I see where you're going with this.
Because Even if Twitter is naturally noisy, we've all seen the butterfly effect online. One random person drops a gum wrapper, it catches an algorithm, and suddenly it's a massive real-world societal uproar. So how does his defense hold up against that specific scenario?
Well, his defense exposes a massive category mistake made by the prosecution.
Category mistake.
Yeah, they were confusing the physical, unavoidable background structural noise of a global network with a legally punishable, localized human action. But to address your pushback about the butterfly effect, we have to transition from the broad architecture of the internet to the specific physics of how information actually moves through these structures.
Okay, how does it move?
The sources pull heavily from physicists Albert Laszlo Barabasi and Rika Albert's work on scale-free networks.
Right, the concept that the internet isn't just a flat, perfectly even grid where everyone is connected to everyone else equally.
Exactly. It follows a severe power law distribution.
Right.
Think of it like the global airline network.
Hmm.
You have massive hubs like JFK or Heathrow with thousands of connections.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you have an ocean of peripheral nodes, tiny regional dirt airstrips with maybe one flight a week.
Okay.
On social media, the hubs are major news organizations, state media, or celebrities with millions of followers. Dr. Chen, sitting behind a VPN with fewer than 100 inactive zombie followers, is the ultimate dirt airstrip. He's a deeply peripheral node.
But couldn't someone at that dirt airstrip put a message on a plane, send it to JFK, and suddenly the whole world sees it?
That is the linear thinking trap again.
Really? Because couldn't one of his zombie followers wake up, retweet it to someone else who retweets it to a hub, and boom, avalanche?
It sounds plausible, but that relies on linear thinking, which physicist Reuven Cohen's formula on network robustness completely shatters.
Oh, wow.
Cohen mathematically proved that in a scale-free network, randomly removing or activating peripheral nodes has a statistical impact of absolute zero on the macro structure of the network.
Absolute zero.
Yes, the hubs completely dictate the flow of the system. A peripheral node firing off a signal without a hub's direct amplification is just mathematically swallowed by the system's baseline noise.
Here is where it gets really interesting to me. You hear the phrase butterfly effect thrown around all the time as a metaphor for modern digital chaos.
Oh, constantly.
But Chen is arguing that his specific actions exist in what physics calls a deep subcritical zone.
Yes, and we can actually map this precise phenomenon using the Galton-Watson extinction theorem, which models branching processes.
Okay, how does that work?
Think of it like trying to start a forest fire. The branching ratio is how many new trees catch fire from a single burning tree.
Right, so if that ratio is above one, say, one tree catches two others on fire, the blaze grows exponentially.
Exactly, that is your avalanche. But if the ratio is below 1, the fire is completely starved of fuel and is mathematically guaranteed to die out.
So Chen is basically telling the court, look at my follower count, look at their engagement, my branching ratio is fractional.
Yes.
I am not a butterfly flapping its wings and causing a tornado. I am a spark landing on wet concrete.
That is a perfect analogy. The Galton-Watson theorem dictates that in a subcritical state, a cascade of information lacks the fundamental energetic fuel to propagate.
So it's physically impossible.
Unless the entire societal network was already sitting at a razor's edge of critical collapse. And in that case, the macro system itself is the problem, not the spark. So Chen's actions physically could not cause the social disruption the prosecution claimed.
So the prosecution's entire linear argument that user A clicks a button, therefore society B falls into ruin, is not just legally flimsy. It is scientifically invalid when applied to complex network topology.
It is quite literally a biological superstition wrapped in legal jargon. He proved they were prosecuting a ghost.
Man, I am really struggling with the human element of this, though. Let's put ourselves in Dr. Chen's shoes for a second.
Okay.
I've done the math. I have absolute scientific proof that my retweets cause zero harm. But I am sitting in a brutal interrogation room.
Yeah, the environment was horrible.
The sources explicitly detail that he was subjected to violently coercive tactics. A prosecutor looked him in the eye and said the higher-ups demanded an ironclad case to utterly destroy him.
Right.
If I know the judge doesn't understand network topology, and I know the verdict is essentially rigged by the state, why on earth am I writing a meticulously academic defense from my prison cell?
It does seem counterintuitive.
Why not just plead for leniency, say I made a mistake, and try to survive?
Because he utterly refused to confess. Instead, he wrote what the sources describe as a blood letter.
A blood letter.
A dense, brilliant manifesto intertwining complex systems, dynamics, legal philosophy, and pure mathematics. And he did this because he was deploying a vastly different evolutionary strategy than his captors.
Okay, what strategy?
The court was utilizing a basic dominance strategy. Raw force, intimidation, the physical power to lock a human body in a cage. Chen countered with a prestige strategy.
Prestige strategy.
Yes, in evolutionary terms, humans grant societal status to dominance. But we also grant profound status to prestige, which is the demonstration of exceptional knowledge, skill, or unyielding integrity.
But he was trapped in a concrete cell. He had no audience. Who was he signaling his prestige to?
Well, by accepting the devastating cost of imprisonment rather than breaking his intellectual honesty, he was engaging in the ultimate form of costly signaling.
Oh, back to costly signaling.
Exactly. A confession squeezed out under duress is cheap. But refusing to bend reality to appease a dictator, even when it costs you your freedom, proves the absolute undeniable truthfulness of your stance.
Wow.
He was signaling that his commitment to objective scientific reality superseded his own biological instinct to avoid pain.
Okay, but the sources say he incorporated Gödel's incompleteness theorem into this letter. Now, I know that is incredibly heavy mathematical logic.
It is very dense, yes.
How does a theorem about advanced math apply to a legal defense against a police state?
It is a brilliant leap on his part. Gödel's incompleteness theorem essentially proved that any complex, formal, logical system like mathematics will inevitably contain statements that are undeniably true but fundamentally unprovable within the strict rules of that system itself.
Wait, really?
Yes, you cannot have a system that is both entirely complete and entirely consistent. It's like a rule book that says every rule in this book is perfect. But when you encounter a scenario the rulebook didn't anticipate, you can't use the rulebook to fix itself.
So there will always be inescapable blind spots in any system.
Inescapable mathematical blind spots. And Chen applied this directly to the legal code.
Oh, I see where this is going.
He was demonstrating that a rigid, dogmatic legal framework will always fail to encompass the full, messy complexity of reality. The court was trying to force the chaotic, infinite variables of global human social networks into a finite, closed loop of outdated criminal statutes.
That is incredible.
Chen basically used Gödel to mathematically prove their judicial system was inadequate to even judge the reality he inhabited.
So what does this all mean? It gives me absolute chills, honestly. He wasn't talking to the judge.
No, not at all.
He knew the judge was a lost cause, just a biological machine running outdated tribal software. He was writing to the future. He was writing to us.
Yes. And if you look at Richard Dawkins' meme theory, which the AI analysis in our sources applies perfectly to this moment.
Meme theory, right. Like genes, but for ideas.
Exactly. In evolutionary biology, genes seek to survive and replicate across generations. In human culture, memes, ideas, concepts, frameworks do the exact same thing.
And Chen understood he was losing the localized physical battle. I mean, his body was captured.
Right. So he executed a cross-generational survival strategy for his mind.
He encoded his innocence into the universal, indestructible languages of mathematics and physics.
A political argument can be censored. A plea for mercy can be erased from the record. But the CAP theorem, Galton-Watson, Gödel, these are fundamental truths of the universe.
Yeah, you can't ban math.
Exactly. By wrapping his defense in these concepts, he ensured his meme would survive his physical confinement.
He essentially built a time capsule out of pure logic.
Yeah.
He transformed a temporary, localized legal defeat into a permanent, undeniable record of scientific truth pushing back against irrational force.
He proved that while they could control his physical node in the network, they could never alter the mathematical reality of the system itself.
Let's step back and look at the sheer scale of what we've unpacked today. We have witnessed a profound, almost tragic collision here.
We really have.
On one side, you have a mechanical legal apparatus driven by ancient tribal instincts and group loyalty, hyperactive threat detection, raw dominance.
Yeah.
And they are colliding head-on with a modern thinker who deeply understands the non-linear, hyper-connected reality of the digital universe we actually live in today.
The legal system is violently demanding a neat, predictable, linear narrative of cause and effect in a world that is fundamentally defined by chaotic, scale-free networks. It is the ultimate evolutionary mismatch.
And for you listening, this isn't just a fascinating story about one physicist in Kunming, China. It is a massive, blinding warning light flashing on the dashboard of modern society.
It really is.
It reveals how dangerously primitive our legal and social institutions are compared to the technological reality we navigate every single day. We are being governed by systems that simply do not understand the physics of the spaces we inhabit.
Exactly.
The mismatch between our ancient brains and our modern networks affects all of us every single time we log on, post, share, or interact online.
And if human legal systems cannot comprehend the basic physical realities of a simple social media network today, well, what happens tomorrow?
That is a terrifying thought.
Think about when these exact same courts, running that exact same Stone Age psychological hardware, are forced to judge the actions, decisions, and outcomes of advanced autonomous AI systems.
Oh, wow.
How will our rigid linear laws survive the next massive leap in complexity?
It really makes you wonder if they are willing to deploy a SWAT team over a single stone splashing in a pond, what are they going to do when the hurricane actually makes landfall? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll catch you next time.